Hi, this is Bill Hartzer, and this is the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer. And today I have the pleasure of having Grant from homes.com here. Hi, Grant.
Bill. Hey,
Tell me
Bill.
about yourself and your background, and how long you've been in digital marketing and so forth.
Sure. I've been in marketing a long time. Came to the States in '92. Obviously, I'm a proud American with a funny accent. You could probably hear that. And '94 went to work for a traditional marketing agency that was digitally advanced, I would say, but zero digital marketing.
Sure.
We were still faxing PowerPoint presentations back and forth. It was actually Aldus PowerPoint back then, or Aldus Power, something like that. And then we had GE Plastics decided they wanted to have a website, and I was the only one with a technical background, having been a programmer in the '80s. And so it fell to me. And then after that, one of our clients, City of Santa Monica, was looking at showing up for Santa Monica Hotel, Santa Monica stores. And I looked, SEO was really new back then in the mid to late '90s, and sucked down everything I could. And I was hooked.
So what kind of when you built sites back in the '90s? I remember using basically I started off with Notepad and actually kind of custom doing HTML. But what kind of we obviously didn't have the CMS that we do and custom CMSs like WordPress and WooCommerce and Shopify and BigCommerce and even custom CMSs now. But what did you use back then? Do you remember?
Sure. So it was kind of interesting because there wasn't really that much choice. Started off doing the hand coding and just learning HTML.
Sure.
And then there was a great WYSIWYG, one of the first on the market, which was Go Live Cyber Studio, that then was bought by Adobe. Adobe had PageMill and other stuff like that, but Go Live was brilliant. It was the first real drag and drop type page builder, and it really allowed us generally, anyone, to design websites that worked. And one of the best things was you could check the internal link and make sure everything wasn't broken, or change one link and everything would update automatically. It was great. Loved it.
Yeah, I do remember Microsoft using Microsoft Frontpage, but there was all sorts of extra extensions and so forth, and in fact there are some still websites out there that are built in Frontpage. There's not many of them, but there are still there are some out there I've seen. It's amazing that even some sites, but even with when we get down to custom HTML or or just more raw HTML, those pages and those sites will load a lot faster than necessarily relying on a database and hitting a database even like WordPress would do every single time a page loads. So I remember going back to pages that really are just raw HTML and CSS and I still fancy creating some of those sites now to see how fast I can get them to load, and that's certainly an issue we have to deal with, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, look, Go Live had bloated pages, a crap ton of code that you couldn't really get rid of. And then WordPress, you have plugins that basically export static HTML for the less data-driven websites, and sometimes that's the best option. Everyone talks about some of the modern technologies of React or Gatsby or other JavaScript frameworks, and it still comes down to what does Google see. And the speed is one issue, but you've also got to make sure the speed and the usability is there as well.
Sure. So I know a fair amount about large websites. I've been doing, I've done a couple audits of a couple of different, large websites. Some being e-commerce, with millions of products, but also some others that are real estate, websites. And that's certainly something that the big issue is page load speed and so forth, because certainly we do have to rely on pulling that information typically from a database, but as well. But how do we get, when we're dealing with millions of pages or even thousands of pages, how do we get and make sure the sites are, can get crawled properly and,
Sure.
and crawled and indexed? And that seems to be kind of a theme that I see over and over, in the past several weeks or past several months, that, Google actually doesn't like to, crawl as many pages, and they're kind of, they're kind of hesitant to crawl.
Well, I think one of the key things here is, well, we have to understand the concept of crawl budget and understand that Google has finite resources and wants to allocate resources effectively. So it does mean that large sites have to really be concerned about their crawl budget. Small sites, less than 1,000 pages, probably not as much. But definitely for large sites, you've got to make sure that the internal linking is really clean. You're focusing on the core pages that make sense. You've got to make sure that there's a good hierarchy of structure that can be understood by users and search engines to understand topic relevance of different silos. And you've got to make sure the site speed, as you said, is really key. With JavaScript frameworks, you really got to make sure you present enough information so that it can see what the page is about, and then generally load dynamically some of the interactive elements. It's an art and a science. And I think that Google has some great resources around JavaScript frameworks now. But at the end of the day, all we are trying to do is serve up a page fast to Google and users. And if we just look at it from that context, it doesn't matter what platform you use. And like you said, HTML pages that are clean are sometimes the best pages to serve up. And that's all you're doing with JavaScript frameworks is you're pre-rendering or server-side rendering. So you're serving up something static, so it's fast. I think a lot of people, certainly dev people, get lost in the weeds there. But at the end of the day, as SEO folks, we've got to tell our dev, we're just looking for site speed. And that might be first contentful paint, first meaningful paint, elements like that in the new core vitals reporting in Google Search Console. Something that's going to be a more of a ranking factor is that user experience, the user perception of the speed of a page.
Yes, definitely. So organic SEO and rankings are one way to get, certainly traffic, but I know that there are other ways through, referral traffic, obviously, and clicks and so forth, and as well as, paid social, we're talking about Facebook and Twitter ads, Instagram ads and so forth, and then traditionally, Google ads and Bing ads, but, and maybe affiliates. Are there any other ways, other than, a traditional organic SEO to get traffic?
Sure. So, my position at Homes.com, I'm the VP of Performance Marketing. So my goal is to look for how we can drive more traffic that converts and how we can get visibility off-site so that we can generate leads off-site or generate more traffic. The key thing there is paid search still works really well. Facebook advertising works really well. Depending on the messaging, as always, depending on the audience, as always. And then we also form strategic partnerships with other large websites or large networks to look at how we can position our data on their sites. So, for example, we aggregate millions, tens of millions of listing data of homes. And so we see how we can present that on other folks' sites to be able to drive traffic back to homes.com or put a search form on other sites. So we have a relationship with some large newspaper networks that do local newspaper websites. And by putting a search form there or a carousel of listings, we can position homes.com off of our site and potentially drive traffic back through a search experience or through identification of carousel where they click through to a distinct property. So I think finding strategic partnerships is really key. And it's also, great for SEO. More traffic is always going to be great for SEO, especially if that traffic, engages and sends positive signals back to, search engines around authority and quality and things like that.
Yeah, so we definitely, have to look at, also partnerships that, a partnership may be, something that maybe a competitor cannot get, so for example, if you have a strategic partnership with, one particular company, then most likely, it would be if you're thinking about just on the link side of it, sure, there may be some links that you can get that through that partnership from, that you do that maybe your competitor cannot necessarily do. I know that, in larger organizations, they're more about looking about, the traffic and so forth. But even if we're talking about just link building in general for, even for example, a mom and pop site, a local business, if they do a partnership, essentially on a smaller scale, those might be some links that they can get to their website that maybe one of their competitors might not be able to get.
Sure. So there's back in the day, I was on the board of the local Convention Business Bureau and the local business entity.
Sure.
And so from that standpoint, everyone can get a link back from the Chamber of Commerce, and that's certainly something that's often valuable. It's an authoritative site, location based. It can be good. But then if you make a partnership with maybe one of the other people within the Chamber of Commerce or one of the other members that no one else can, or it's unique, like a coupon based approach or something else where you can make that relationship happen, and you position it as, look, I love doing business with you, but really this is just going to be between me and you. Please don't take on anyone else. I think those kind of things can be really, really valuable, and that's all that business entities and these kind of chambers are about. It's about building those relationships, then thinking about whether it can be good for your link building efforts, or think about whether it's good from a traffic partnership effort. But really, traditional marketing and digital marketing, it's really just a different forum. It's the same kind of tactics and strategy.
Yeah, and it's it comes down to a lot of connections and networking and so forth. And, you can't necessarily just, you do have to have, the networking part of it. You do have, there are people behind websites, and so you do have to do that networking and reach out to people and so forth, as well, and it certainly should be good for both sides.
Sure. Well,
both parties, definitely.
Well, traditional outreach or guest posting or anything else that, when done in moderation, is part of an overall link strategy. It's really about seeing where the win-win is. In the old days, it was, I'm paying you for that particular placement. Now it's, can you provide valuable content or data or something that will drive traffic to them, and then directly and indirectly drive traffic to you, or drive authority or a collaboration or a connection between these two sites. That's what it's about. We've got to look at that value component in link building these days, or whether we want to call it promotion or partnerships or anything else. Some of the goals is sometimes a link. Now, as a large brand, and I'm working with large brands, we're really not mandating specific anchor text or mandating specific no follows. I know that follows or no follows. I know that's kind of heresy, but at the end of the day, we've got to be careful. If someone wants to give you a link that's followed, terrific. If they want to no follow, also fine. Google is this massive connection engine, and creating those connections, through that affinity is really key.
Yeah. So what I've always been, even back when they first instituted, no follow, that my theory has been, and that's just my personal theory, is that, Google, or, any search engine for that matter, Bing as well, they can look at no follow and use it as a suggestion. And that, even if it's a no follow link, and I've proved to myself that I've ranked a page literally that had only no follow links, but they were good, they were really good links. And so, that had traffic and people clicked on them. And so I have a theory that now that even when it comes down to that, it is a suggestion, and Google knows that, okay, if this is a very good trusted website and they're linking to another trusted website, for example, that, they may, just kind of ignore that no follow and say, okay, even though there's a no follow tag on there, and there is traffic and so forth, they might get past some credit, or
Well,
whatever you want to call it, page rank or link juice or whatever, whatever you want to, whatever we're
well,
calling
we
it.
can call it whatever we want. That's the great thing about SEO. It's mostly
Sure.
opinion. But look, I'm not disagreeing with you at all. I believe that this giant connection engine looks at authority as something that you can give like a handshake. Um, and although we always talked about links as being a vote for the other site, I
Yeah.
think if we can't say that there is a web of connections that bestows authority on folks beyond just a followed link, I think we'd be kind of silly, because that can't be how Google looks at it. They're smart, and as you've said, most things we've taken as gospel have been more recently noted as suggestions, like no index and things like
Yeah.
this, and canonicals. Anytime you go into Google Search Console and you see this is the canonical you put, and this is what Google thinks is a better canonical,
Yep.
They're going beyond just an implied connection. There's got to be
Sure.
something there that's a little bit more as a suggestion and a mention as value.
Exactly. But what I still go back originally to, if we take, kind of before the search engines, look at the old Yahoo directory, and that it was about, that people went in the 90s, we went to the Yahoo directory to find websites that had been vetted, and, to links. And that's how we got our traffic. And it was, literally traditionally about, one person linking to another, and they give that trust and that vote, if you will. And now it's changed a lot, and I know that Google understands a lot more about intent and so forth. There's still some fuzzy gray areas that that I know that people can do some things to manipulate links. And I think that that as the search engines become more sophisticated, if you will, then certainly there will be those out there that will try and take advantage of uh, a loophole, or something, or something like that.
Yeah, I think that how you position SEO is the key to how you attack SEO or address SEO. And I really
Sure.
think it's about helping sites that deserve to rank show up where they deserve to rank. And
Yep.
if you look at it from that standpoint, all you're trying to do is improve the user experience through better information, connecting with a specific query by answering fully that particular question, satisfying the user so that they are positive about the experience, and whatever signals that generates, whether it's social signals or longevity, or coming back to the site, or clicking the next time you're seen in the SERP. I think that's it. When you look at it as manipulation, and look, we've all stuffed keywords. We've been in the business long enough that my first website had 30 mentions in the keywords for exactly the same keyword. We've all done it. But these days it is about how do we create the best result. And affiliates have got this down to a science where it is a good experience most of the time. Yes, they might manipulate, they might leverage PBNs or other link tactics that we'd consider great, but at the end of the day, they are producing great quality signals most of the time that allows them to earn hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that, to me, SEO is the same thing. We are just affiliate marketers on a different scale.
Yes, definitely. So I know that you've been working on a couple of different other projects. Are there any kind of for example, if we're going to put up a new website, are there certain what are some tips or tricks, or some recommendations that you have that for new websites to rank quickly? Is it about the content, or do we need some links, or what are your recommendations?
Sure. So, funny enough, the wife and I just purchased a business as Vintage Virginia Photos, and it's taken over an existing business. An existing business, the owner wanted to keep their website, their URL. So we're starting from a new URL
Sure.
from scratch. Chose an exact match URL just because I think sometimes that's a user-focused decision. And then we negotiated as part of the deal to have 2 pages. Whoop, I lost an earbud, excuse me.
Okay.
2 pages from the current website would go away, and we'd redirect just those 2 relevant pages. So I made sure to put that as part of the negotiation. We then built out a very simple structure that was very easy to navigate, and with 2 pages that exactly matched the intent of those 2 pages on the old website. And we launched just with a very small website with just a few pages submitted in the XML sitemap. And we let that shake itself up a little bit until we saw those pages were ranking a little bit just to start. And then we added some unique content. Then we gradually introduced more pages via Google Search Console into the XML sitemap, submitted those pages just selectively, not trying to do anything en masse. It's that slow process. And within 3 weeks, we were ranking in the top 10 for some of the terms. And then we expanded out to some of the other terms. So where the original website was ranking for vintage photos of Virginia Beach, we started introducing words like, old photos of Virginia Beach, old Norfolk photos, historic photos. So we gradually built out through the semantics or through similar words so that we rank now for a larger corpus of those keywords. And it works really well. Now, that being said, you have an existing website and you take it over. So that was one of our options, but I decided to go the other route. I ran a crawl on their website before I decided whether I wanted it or not. The main challenge was thin content, duplicate content, orphan pages, slow page speed. These are both WordPress websites, but I'm using caching plugins and everything else. And really just I could have taken his website and made it better. There was a lot of basic core SEO challenges that they had around technical SEO content. But sometimes it's better just to start from scratch and take some equity. I then did a couple of pieces of outreach to existing folks that were linking to those 2 pages I transferred over, or the 2-page content, and just said, would you mind changing it to the new URL? Hey, we're just taking this business and we're more than happy to do it. So I think the thing is, slow but sure can get fast results. Don't think you want to launch with 2,000 pages and get 2,000 pages ranking. What you want to do is link with the most relevant pages around the key core topics, and then gradually build out. And by build out, I mean gradually submit more pages, improve, see how they're going, iterate, and build that way. And it's worked pretty well. Great.
Are there any, common mistakes you're seeing as, you look at sites that, I see a lot of, still a lot of things like, when I'm doing audits, I see a lot of, mega menus and, basically a site where every page links to every page and, in the navigation, for example, and I see, duplicate content issues and so forth. What are you seeing, typically when you, are there anything that common when it comes to common mistakes, if you will?
Sure. So, I'm full-time at homes.com, but any SEO consultant gets asked questions all the time. So I certainly do help out a few folks. So there was a company called BOSS, which is Boulder Outdoor Survival School. So it's a great organization. It's a boss-inc.com. They take people out into the wild 14 days and 7 days, whatever. So when I looked at their site, they didn't have any mention of survival school apart from in their name. They called it outdoor pursuits or whatever it might be. So more often than not, I think there's always a misalignment between what people think their business is about and what people are searching for. I think that's the most common mistake, unless they've had some SEO folks tell them in the past or they have some kind of understanding. The second thing is that there is, you mentioned it, it's pretty normal. trying to link to everything from either a menu or from the homepage. The homepage
Sure.
is your juice bucket, and you want to be very selective about what you link to. And I think a lot of people think they should link to a lot of the pages. I look at what are the top level categories and how can I let people self-select so that we understand their intent and we can tailor the second landing page to that intent. So maybe one is let's just say a B2B and a B2C company. One says, "Hey, are you a customer? Are you a business?" That simple search selection can help, and then using relevant anchor text on the homepage can really help drive that relevance to the underlying pages. The second thing is only linking to relevant pages once you get down into the belly of your website.
Sure.
Once again, preservation of, if we want to call it link juice, we can. Preservation of authority through the site to make sure it's focused on like topics. I was just talking to someone online today in one of the groups we're members of, and just saying, if you have links to many different countries, should they appear in the top nav or footer or wherever? I say,
Sure.
and should they appear on every page? Well, I think the answer is they should appear on the homepage definitely, and then maybe you interlink between European countries once you get down to that level, or North America, Canada, Mexico, and US. But you don't want to link to everything on every page. So that's always a common mistake that people do. My last thing, and I'll try and keep this brief, sorry. I'm passionate about this. My last thing is the minor technical issues, all right? Orphan pages. Unbelievable how many sites build pages and then never link to them. They're in the XML sitemap, and it can drag down the site overall. They're simple fixes. Either they deserve to exist, so they should have a link to them, or they don't. The second thing is generally duplicate content. And when someone uses a WordPress site, a lot of small businesses do. It's a great CMS. It's really looking at pages you've created that you've forgotten that are exact duplicates of something. You've done it as a test, and then you've created a different page, or you've created a page, you've changed the URL for some reason. Someone said you've changed URL, and the page is no longer linked correctly. So I think there's those challenges that we see that are most obvious and most prevalent. There's lots of other things we can go into, Bill. But yes, those are the most prevalent stuff I see.
Yeah, so I actually do see a lot of orphan pages issues, and sometimes it's even thousands of orphan pages. And there's basically two ways to, kind of easier ways. Is number one is to look at log files, and you look at compare log files with the crawl of the website. And there's some tools out there certainly that you can basically look at the log file data, take all the URLs from there, and compare those with a crawl of the website. And you can get a list of, you can get, orphan pages. And there are some tools like OnCrawl, I know that I use fairly regularly, that basically, and OnCrawl and Sitebulb and, various crawlers that will actually give you that, a list of the orphan pages. The same thing with comparing, even looking at, if you don't use a crawler, or you could do it kind of manually, is to take all the pages from Google Analytics and compare those to a simple crawl of the website. And certainly that and you'd be amazed. Yes, I mean a lot of companies will go through web designs. That's a typical issue I see, is that when they do a web design, they redesign the site, they don't necessarily kill all the old pages on the server. They may just leave them out there, and there might be pages or URLs that still have traffic. Certainly, we can look at pages in Google Search Console, that may have traffic as well. So there's so many different ways. Then once you start all that, you really started going into the rabbit hole of so many different things that you can find when doing those technical reviews and audits and so forth.
Well, you mentioned Sitebulb. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't both give the guys a big pat on the back. It's a great tool. Generally what I do is I run a crawl of a website with the XML sitemap selected as well. It will automatically tell you what's in the XML sitemap that's not linked anywhere. I then put that into a big spreadsheet with the Google Search Console URLs, like you said. That means anything that's potentially showing up from an impression based or a traffic based, and just see then where the mess might be, because often parameter driven or other things that aren't really linked but are still showing up, it highlights a lot of those issues as well, and that's that duplicate content or some other thin page issue. So it's a bit different from when we started, Bill. Some of the tools we had was just our brain and quick fingers on the keyboard.
Yep. All right, we're just about out of time. So why don't you tell me a little bit how to get in touch with you? I know you're on Twitter. Is that the best place to get in touch?
Twitter is great at Simonet, Simmonet. LinkedIn, same thing, at Simonet, Grant Simmons. You can search for me on Google, Grant Simmons, SEO, and I show up, believe it or not.
Great.
And also connect with me at any conference, or just ping me when we can get back to real world conferences. I'll be out there. So that'll be great.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for joining me this afternoon. This is in the Digital Marketing Podcast with Bill Hartzer, and I have a special guest today, Grant Simmons from homes.com. Thanks again for joining me this afternoon, and we'll see you online.
Sounds great. Okay. Thanks, Bill.
Thanks,
cheers.